Welcome to Chamber Exchange, the TV show. My name is Tim Murray, President and CEO of the Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce. And Chamber Exchange, the TV show, is an opportunity for us to bring on chamber members and guests to talk about economic development, jobs, and finances today a little bit. The show is brought to you by our sponsors, Bank Hometown and St. Vincent Hospital. And so very timely to have Eileen Dawson, who is a Ramsey Preferred Money Coach from Dawson Services. Eileen, welcome.
Well, thank you, Tim, for having me.
So we were at a chamber event yesterday, and the conversation, Ambassador Alan Leventhal came in and spoke and did a little Q&A with the crowd. And he asked the crowd, what do you think the number one issue is that people are concerned about in some polling that he had received? And the single biggest issue is cost of living. And closely correlated with that is housing and rent and mortgage payments. And your business, you work with individuals, I assume families, et cetera, on how to pinch a penny, how to save.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I do is I teach personal finance so that we can get people's income higher than their expenses. So it is looking at things, and yes, things are definitely more expensive than they were a few years ago. But oftentimes there are areas, categories that people spend a little bit more money than they think they do, like eating out and streaming services, Amazon. That was my guilty pleasure. And so when we start taking a look at things, people can start to take a look and see, what do I need and what do I want? Because they're different. We have to take care of the needs. But the wants, we have a little bit more flexibility. So.
And just, you know, looking a little bit at the script notes before the meeting, I mean, it sounds like when you sit with someone, I mean, literally going over line item in a checkbook, on a debit card, I mean, really scrutinizing that spending. And as you mentioned, people probably are surprised and trends emerge.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, when I start going through budgeting and they see, wait a minute, it's saying that I spent $1,000 more than I make. There must be something wrong with the software. And then we kind of start taking a look and it's like, oh wow, kids sports and, you know, all the Chick-fil-A and McDonald's trips after or before practice. And all of a sudden it adds up to be a lot of money.
Yeah. And so once you've kind of worked through that analysis, people have got to make some choices, right?
They do. I don't tell them what to do, but I'll just kind of point out some things like, hey, what do you think? You know, you think that grocery, you might be able to cut a little bit of that grocery out, or maybe the things that get fuzzy in the back of the refrigerator, we can kind of curve that and, you know, eat them instead of, you know, having them go bad.
Right. And you're not eating them because you're going out to
right.
the fast food. One of the things that they kind of talked about is credit cards, vehicle loans, student loan debts, and then kind of a cohort of people in that 30 to 55-year-old who have a home, kids, student loans, vehicles, daycare. You kind of go through it all.
Yes. And a lot of times it is typically the 30 to 50, 55. Sometimes folks on the older end, you know, they might be going through a divorce. They might have had, you know, situations in their lives where a lot of the 30s and 40s and even 50s, they are really starting to get squished by all the finances. Right. You know, they might have daycare and they might have bought a little bit too much house, or maybe the vehicle keeps needing to be repaired, or it's just so many expenses that people don't necessarily anticipate that happen.
Right.
So.
And so, you talk about that finance. I mean, to some extent, we mentioned that 30 to 55-year-old range, but the sooner a person, like, you know, high school, college age, right out of college, that they can kind of grasp some of these lessons and concepts, then you can maybe.
That's a fun group to work with.
Yeah.
It's my kids' ages because they're 26 down to 19. And if you could start that, like I said to my 26-year-old, you know, if you have $30,000 in your retirement right now, that potentially could be a couple $1 million by the time you're 65 or 70. That's a lot of money.
It's time and interest.
Yep. Just, you know, compounding and duplicating, you know, every 7 or 10 years. It adds up to be a lot of money. And that's if she stopped right now.
Stop spending.
No, if she stopped saving in retirement right
30,
now.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, for 30 or 35 to turn into, you know, a couple million. And imagine if she does another 35 by the time she's 30,
right,
that can turn into some really good money without a lot of effort. Opposed to some people, they don't get started till 40 or 50, and now they've got to speed up and they've got to, you know, do quite a bit more.
Right.
So they could still do it. They could still get there, but it just takes a little bit more work and a little bit more money.
And so you mentioned software. So when you
Yes, I know every dollar software very, very well. And so if somebody's computer savvy, that's what we do. We get in there and we look at everything, because then we can put everything into the software and see what's going on a daily basis. As as different bills are coming in, they slide into the different categories that I help them design, that's individual to their situation or their family.
Right.
And so you have instant feedback on what you're spending.
Now, one of the things it said that you're generally able to find $600 to $1,200 of wants that kind of you can cut out of a budget that people maybe with not a lot of impact on them. They just...
Yeah, I think a lot of times, I have someone I'm working with right now on the West Coast, and she said, I'm $1,700 over budget. What am I going to do? And she started taking a look at things, and all of a sudden she was down to $400 over budget, and she's still working it. And she's like, wow, I didn't realize how much I was spending. And if you have $20,000 or $30,000 of credit card debt, and you're over, your budget is over what you're making, how do you get out of that credit card debt? And the rates are so high for credit cards right now that they're struggling.
Right. And it's starting to creep up from what I've been
Yes.
reading.
Some are 37%, some of the retail card. That's a lot of money. Can you imagine if you got that return on
well, the interest rates, but also consumer debt is going up a little bit as well. So, and so how do you get people make referrals? How do you get in touch with people? Then how do they work out their agreement with you for your services?
Yeah, most of the people that I'm working with are referrals. I think, I will post things on Facebook feeds and that kind of thing, but I'm talking about people's money, and people are very kind of tight to the chest with their money. And so there has to be a certain level of trust, for to trust me that I'm going to lead them. So typically I work with people for at least 3 months, because it takes time to get habits changed. It takes time to build confidence in their abilities. Right. Yeah, that happens pretty quickly.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah, we usually have like a budgeting goal. That's the first thing we do, and we literally go step by step through the software, because many people have never budgeted. And so that's the first one. And then typically we'll meet a couple times a month. And then after 3 or 4 months, people tend to kind of it starts to stagger. We still get together. They still need some guidance, but it's not to the same level as at the beginning when they're learning new behaviors and they're starting to turn the boat around.
Right.
And they're going to be driving it instead of it driving them.
Got it. And there are 4 tips that you've got.
Yes.
So and they're great.
They're probably your grandmother's tips, my grandmother's tips. The first one is live on less than you make.
Right.
So if you make $5,000 a month, you can't be living on 6, or else it's going to get you in trouble. And the second one is, if you don't have the money, don't buy it.
Yes. How many times have we heard that? But we can't say it enough, right?
As we come into Christmas shopping and everything, put a budget together, and really take a look. Last year was the first year I truly kept within my budget. Right. I didn't get emotional and spend a whole lot more, because I was feeling joyous, And then the third one is, talk about money.
Yeah.
If you're married or you have a partner, talk about it.
Right.
It's not an easy subject, and so a lot of times I'll say, why don't you hold hands when you're doing it? That way people don't get ugly and,
Or no one takes a shot.
Oh, yeah.
And then the last one was check bank account and budget 2 or 3 times per week.
Yes, and it's funny when people are going into their checkbooks and they're starting to look in their accounts. It's like, hey, what's that $25 charge I've had for the last year?
Yes, yeah.
And then you realize, oh, I was on some service that I never agreed to, and so but also to be able to see what's going on in there. If you've got a mortgage that's coming up for $2,500 and you've only got $2,000 in your account, now we got to figure out okay, how are we going to pay this mortgage?
Right.
So the goal is to end up with an emergency fund, so that as people come into the next month, it's not a problem. They don't they're not going to panic that they're getting paid on the 6th and the mortgage is coming out on the 2nd.
Right. And then avoiding some of the penalties or overdrafts. Overdraft fees,
yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Overdraft fees and GitHub and DoorDash. Those are culprits. My son certainly could attest to that.
And so people can learn about your services. You have a website?
I do. Yep.
So DawsonServices.GoDaddySites.com.
That's correct.
And kind of what we talked about here and more on there.
Yeah, and I always give people, a half an hour consult or so. We talk a little bit about their situation, answer some questions. If they, don't coach, that's okay. You're still going to walk away with some tips. And then there's other resources I have, and there's lots of great books and videos and stuff so that people can, if they really wanted, they could do it on their own.
Got it. Well, Eileen Dawson, very timely, important subject that we've got to empower people with as early as possible about handling finances. Eileen Dawson, Ramsey Preferred Money Coach, Dawson Services. Thanks for being with us.
These days, you've got your hands full in life. That's why we help you bank simply and securely with tools like Face ID and Touch ID. It's why we make it easy to make purchases on the go and get cash back while you're at it. Why we help you quickly deposit checks wherever you are. And it's why we lend a hand with sending and receiving money right from your phone. So even when you're on the move, you can manage your finances. Bank Hometown. Unlock your potential.